Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the latest edition of Hollywood Swingin'. I'm your host, Stephen Bishop, alongside my co-host, as usual, the ever dapper, the J-Hay Kid, the legacy. Jerry, I think I'm going to let you off the hook with the Denzel doppelganger thing. I think we've beat that horse to death.
Yes.
As long as we can agree that you will not post any more side-by-side pictures with yourself and Mr. Washington, I think we can move on from that. How do you feel about it?
Well, I don't know if I can guarantee that, Steven. You know, like I told you, sometimes I'm at Best Buy, sometimes, I'm at Dodger Stadium, sometimes at Crypto, a Laker game, and they go, Denzel. I go, God, guys, I'm not Denzel. So once again, Steven, it's not me. It's not me. I don't know why people think I look like Denzel Washington. But, there are some people that are of age, as in the 80s, 90s, and they're hard of seeing. The sight's kind of going away. Maybe that's their excuse. But, again, I'm not saying I look like Denzel Washington by any means. Okay. I'm not saying that. It's just the people.
Ladies and gentlemen who are watching who have confused this man for Denzel Washington, ladies and gentlemen, Jerry Hairston Jr. Jerry, how you doing today? How you been? It's been a little while since I saw you.
It's been a minute. I know you've been extremely busy. I've been extremely busy as well. Baseball season is in full swing. The Dodgers are rolling. Good to see you, brother. I'm excited to get this back going, and I know we got an incredible guest today.
We do. How you feeling about the playoffs right now with LeBron, as we speak, this will obviously air long after this happens, but as we speak, LeBron and the Lakers are up 3-2 against the Warriors. The Suns are down 3-2, I believe, to the Nuggets at the present time. How are you feeling about and something's going on over there in New York with Miami and the Knicks? I don't know what's happened in the last couple of days, but I think that
the Heat are up 3-2.
Okay, so Stephen A. Smith is very upset about this right now.
Yeah, he is. He's flustered. To talk about the Lakers, Anthony Davis, in my opinion, has been the best, not only the best player on the Lakers, but you can make a case he's been the best player in these playoffs, especially on the defensive end.
Wow.
That's
a statement.
It is a statement. It's just a fact. The Joker's playing unbelievable basketball. Devin Booker has been scoring
what I was gonna say.
At will. But I'm just talking about the all-around game. Anthony Davis, his defense has been a huge factor in these playoffs. He's having an Akeem Olajuwon, dare I say, Bill Russell-esque type defensive playoffs with block shots, steals. The Warriors are scared to drive the paint when Anthony Davis is there, and rightfully so because he's been so dominant. And I'm hoping he doesn't have a concussion. It looked like he had a concussion. We're approaching Game 6. I know this will air after, but if he doesn't play Game 6, it could be tough for the Lakers to beat the Warriors.
Well, we'll see how all of that pans out. It's good that we're talking about basketball. That's a perfect segue into who our guest is today, Jerry. Allow me to do the introduction here. Our guest today is a graduate of Glenn A. Wilson High School. He's from Hacienda Heights, California. Mm-hmm. He led the 1986 squad. I don't want to date him, but he led the 1986 squad to the CIF state championship title. He was named a McDonald's All-American in 1986. He went on to an NBA career, played for the Bulls, Sixers, Bucks, Nuggets, Suns, Mavericks, and Cavs. Dare I say, he is the NBA Jerry Hairston Jr. Or maybe you're the. What'd you play for? 15 teams?
I play for 9 teams, but Scott came first. So
okay, so then you would be the MLB version of him. This man credits Michael Jordan for having a career in the NBA. So we'll get into that story. And then at the tail end of that, the bookend of him crediting Michael Jordan for him having a career, in his last season, he became LeBron James's oldest teammate and the only one of his teammates to have been born in the 60s. So there's that. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome our guest, Scott Williams. Scott, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Stephen, Jerry. Thank you guys so much for having me on Hollywood Swingin'. I caught the first part of that intro, and if any of your viewers out there are confusing Jerry with Denzel Washington, the Diamondbacks have a great laser eye doctor I could recommend to.
That would be great. That would be great.
Sometimes I go by Denzel Williams, but I don't know if that gets anybody confusing me with Denzel Washington. That's for sure.
Well, I have had the pleasure of working with Mr. Washington. We did Safe House together, and I can tell you that neither of you look anything like him. So we're going to dispel with these types of conversations for the rest of the day.
Exactly. Gonna get us all some hot water, that's for sure. But no, Glen A. Wilson High School. You really did do your research. You're gonna take it back to '86 on me, but we had some great teams. In fact, I was texting with my old high school coach, Mike Lowe, just this morning about that group that went on to win that state championship. We were a band of brothers, so to speak.
Well, hey, I know how that is, as does Jerry. I have guys that I played high school baseball with that I'm still good with, college baseball. And, in the minor leagues, you don't forge as tight a relationships as you do in the sports where you're there for 4 years or you grew up with the guys. But I still talk to some guys that I even played pro ball with. So, and Jerry, I know that you're still very tight with a lot of the guys you played in the big leagues with. So, this athletics thing, this band of brothers, the camaraderie, everything that we go through together, the blood, sweat, and tears, it forges a lot of bonds. So I definitely can relate.
Yeah, I love the bonds. Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Scott.
So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but it's exactly what you're right. I spent 4 years at the University of North Carolina, and I wrote a book in my head with my first book signing. I was so nervous, my hands were sweating. I didn't know if anybody would even show up, and it was my teammates from college that came to the book signing. They helped bring people into the stores. Ended up signing autographs for almost 3 hours straight, raised a lot of money for the local domestic violence center right there. And it's those types of things, right, that you don't expect the guys to do, but it's very much appreciated when they do something like that. And, it gives you that warm and fuzzy feeling that, you weren't just some dudes you played basketball with. The friendship and the camaraderie and the brotherhood, the family is still here some nearly 40 years later.
Scott, you mentioned a book. You mentioned a book. You have a new book out now called Through the Fire, a memoir of trauma, loss, triumph, and basketball. Is that the book that you were talking about?
Yeah, shameless plug for sure.
Hey, no, yeah, shameless. No, don't have any. That's why we're here. Hey, everybody get your thing off. You know what I mean?
It's called Through the Fire, and it's about my time and getting into the pros and playing in the NBA with, like I say, Jordan started in Jordan, Chicago. It's true about MJ helping me get my foot in the door. And, I wrote it with a guy named Ben Guest. So I was telling him all my stories about the league. He goes, well, yeah, but what happened before you got to the league, right? So then I had to go back to Hacienda Heights and some of the issues that I had growing up. I was in a family with a lot of domestic violence.
Well, let's get to that.
Okay.
Let's get to that in a second. I want to get to that because I definitely want to talk about it because I think it's a story that a lot of people can really benefit from. But I want to start with the MJ story here and your NBA career. And, can you tell the story of how MJ is somehow credited with you having an NBA career?
As I'm sure know, North Carolina was a big place in MJ's heart. He's from Wilmington, went to the University of North Carolina like I did. And I was coming out of the college in 1990 and had a bad shoulder. So I dropped from late first lottery pick out of the first round, out of the draft completely. So I knew if I was going to make the NBA, my window was small and shrinking daily. And just so happened to be, MJ was playing in I guess kind of a charity pickup game in Greensboro, about 45 minutes down the road from Chapel Hill. And he brings a lot of his pro buddies and a lot of the Charlotte Hornets, and some college kids get invited, the local college kids. So I jumped at the opportunity to get in that game and figured I got to measure my worth against pro guys if I'm going to try to make the NBA. And I got a good, hard physical game from one of my former college teammates, J.R. Reed, Kenny Gaddis, and some guys that were in the league. And I looked real good. And I got a ball late in the game when we were down by one, and I was on Jordan's team. And I found number 23 with his tongue out in the right corner, and he knocked down the game-winning jump shot. And he decides, as he's leaving the arena, to call Jerry Krause, the general manager of the Chicago Bulls at the time, and told him to give me a tryout.
Wow. He
Wow.
saw early that you would be willing to get him the ball to take that game-winning shot. I see.
Yeah. Well, smart enough to get him the ball too, right? So not all athleticism. Sometimes you got to be smart. Realize who you're on the floor with. But I think what he saw in me was a guy that was hungry and willing to help him get past a very nasty Detroit Pistons basketball club that was super physical. The guys like, Lambeer and Mahorn and Spider Sally and Rodman had been beating them up in the playoffs 3 previous years. And he saw that I wasn't afraid to mix it up, and he wanted some of that on his club. And I honestly don't think MJ makes that call if he doesn't think I can help him. Because he was hell-bent on getting a championship. When we get some time, I'll tell you about our training camp that year. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, and we're going to get to that, Scott, because I want to hear it. And Stephen, as you know, I grew up in the Chicago area. I grew up a huge Bulls fan, and I bled Chicago Bulls basketball from 1984 on. So I got a chance to see. There were exciting years, but I got a chance to see the Bulls lose to the vaunted Celtics teams with Larry, McHale, Parrish, had incredible teams, and the Detroit Pistons as well, who had incredible teams as well. And yes, they were extremely physical. So what happened was that call that MJ made probably changed the course of history, because Scott, the very first year he got there, guess what the Bulls did? They won the championship. So in Scott Williams' rookie year, the Chicago Bulls end up winning the championship. And then Michael Jordan helped lead the youngest group ever in the history of the NBA against Magic Johnson's team. And one of those young guys was Scott Williams. So you're right, Scotty. When he made that call, Jerry Krause gave you that tryout. You came and you made that team, and you helped change history, because not only did you guys win one, you guys ended up three-peating.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to be on those guys. You probably give me a little more credit than I deserve, but I'll take it because I like to hear it.
Hey, Jerry, I don't know if you know.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
We were a young, talented group. I didn't realize we were the youngest group ever to win a championship. That was a little bit new to me, but we were hungry. And training camp was a war. I remember the first day we had a dinner prior to the first day of practice, and all you heard from Phil Jackson, Jerry Krause, and Michael Jordan was, we need the best record in the Eastern Conference so we can have home court advantage over the Detroit Pistons when we face them in the playoffs. And we battled 3 hours twice daily for 8 days straight, and it was like a war. Michael Jordan was a smoldering beast. He got after it in each and every drill, and the rest of us fed off of his lead and his example. And the funny thing about that year is, as hard as we worked and as hyped as we were for the season, we start the season 0-3. We lost our first 3 out the gate. So it went from crazy intense to even more intense after that before we finally got our first win. And first time we met the Pistons, they smoked us. I think they beat us by double digits, if not 20 points. So we had to continue to grind over the course of that season. There was never any let up. Everything was, you had to be on point, or MJ would let you know about it if you didn't know your assignments defensively, what you were supposed to do offensively. If you didn't know a player personnel scouting report, that dude was on top of it for around 7, 8, 9 months of that year. There was no let off. By the time we saw them in the playoffs, we were a different team, more confidence mentally, better physically, stronger, ready to perform. And we ended up sweeping them and going on to playing the Lakers, which, Jerry, I grew up a Southern California fan. I watched those Showtime Lakers, man. Like you watched the Bulls. That was my love. I wanted to win a championship with the Lakers. I watched Magic and Kareem and Norm Nixon and Jamal Wilkes and James Worthy. I could go all on down the list of those guys. So it was surreal to me to be playing in the Forum against those guys that I idolized watching up when I used to listen to Chick Hearn on the radio call the games on simulcast when I was supposed to be doing my homework. That moments and the emotions that came flooding through me were so intense.
You talk about that championship in 91. I work with James Worthy. He covers the Lakers. I cover the Dodgers. We're in the same building, and I always talk with Big Game James, and we talk about that 91 team. The Lakers team, they had Magic, they had Vlade Divac, B. Scott, James Worthy, who was still on top of his game. Now, he got hurt later in the finals, but Big Game talked. He goes, going into the finals, a lot of people don't realize the Lakers were favored. Even though you guys had home court advantage, the Lakers are favored in that series because they had Magic Johnson, who's been there before. They had James Worthy, who they've won championships together before. So they thought, or the people thought, you guys would end up losing that series because of the lack of inexperience and the youth. You guys dropped game one. And I'll never forget this. I was crushed, Scotty. I was crushed. You guys were at home. The Bulls, you guys lose game one. I'm like almost in tears. I'm a 14-year-old kid, almost in tears. And I remember my dad saying this. My dad was, just retired as a Major League Baseball player. He knew MJ a little bit. He goes, listen, let me tell you something. He goes, they got that one right there. That's all they're going to get. Now that the guys realize, and you remember, Scott, you guys were in that game. You guys should have won that game, but you guys didn't play well. You guys didn't play well at all, and you guys still almost won that game. It took Sam Perkins, another Tar Heel, to hit that three-pointer to beat you guys. But after that, game two, you guys went nuts. And I know game three was a little close. MJ hit that tough shot to send it to OT. But once OT hit, you guys were on fire, and it was a joy to watch. See, I remember. You don't think I remember, Scotty? No, I remember everything.
You ran down the whole series exactly the way it unfolded. There was a play, I believe it was in game one or game two, where MJ caught the basketball and he's floating down the lane, and big long arm Sam Perkins comes over and he brings it down around, and it does the left. And I'm at half court, watching this, probably, not loafing back on defense or something, but watching this whole play unfold. One of the greatest moments of my life are moves that I'd ever seen in an NBA Finals, and thinking, okay, this cat is not going to let us lose this series. We're not going to win every game. But that was the thing when you had with MJ, especially after that first year, you realize he's just so good and so much better than everybody else. He'll do whatever he has to do to win the series. And as long as everybody else did their bit, right? So, for me and Stacey King, Will Purdue, it's like, set screens, roll hard to the floor, play good defense, and stay the hell out of his way.
Well, you mentioned that he's on top of everything, like knowing other people's assignments and knowing plays and things like that. You hear that a lot when it comes to the guys that we talk about in the GOAT conversation. You hear that about LeBron right now. He remembered a play that the Golden State did back in 2018 or something, and directed traffic on the floor. You hear that about
everybody
Kobe.
Runs that play, Steven. Everybody runs that play. But go ahead.
He's getting a little too much credit for that because
everybody runs that play.
We ran that play 22 years ago when I was a teammate of Darvin Ham's, who's the head coach of the Lakers. We called it Hammer after Darvin Ham because he could jump so far out of bounds and sling that ball to the corner that he could get it around the defense that was collapsing to the middle. I was generally the guy setting the back pick on the weak side to free Ray Allen or Glenn Robinson go into the corner to knock that three in. So that play probably wasn't going to work anyway because now everybody's seen it for the last 20 years. Everyone just switches that side action on that back pick. But yeah, it's funny that he's getting so much credit for his basketball IQ of remembering that play. And
if I know that, I don't even play basketball.
Damn play.
Okay. Point granted, you guys got me on that one. But everybody talks about his basketball IQ in general. So he remembers entire sequences of 22 points in each possession and things like that. You hear about Kobe being like that and on top of everything. You hear about now Jordan. I mean, obviously we've heard that before. You hear Magic Johnson being that way. How important is it to have a guy on that team who's kind of like a coach on the floor who can tell you guys what to do mid-play and mid-possession and things like that in a championship run?
Oh, it's huge when you got a guy with that type who's locked in and can recall situations for everybody's positions, just on plays that the team's going to run, and so many adjustments are made during the course of a playoffs too. Like changing up your whole entire offensive playbook, but there's micro adjustments, to how your play is going to be run, rather than you going to your first option now might become your second option may become your first option as a team starts keying in on things. And to have somebody be able to recognize that on the fly defensively, it's huge, because you can talk about scoring points and outscoring people all you want. But I am still convinced, even in this day of, the 130, 135, 129 playoff scores, that you still win down the stretch with defense and rebounding.
Absolutely. And you know what? And that's what, you cover the West out here, and that's what impressed me with Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
Obviously, Scotty, you've seen this game. You've played this game for so many years. In my humble opinion, I haven't seen a guy like Anthony Davis since probably Akeem Olajuwon be able to go out there and guard Steph Curry, a point guard, and he's 7 feet tall, and force Steph Curry into a bad shot. And I can't believe I'm saying this. Steph Curry into a bad shot. He missed that shot in Game 4. And then come back in the paint and block everybody, whether you're 7 feet, 6'1". His defensive presence, I talked to Big Game James, I talk to all those Lakers, they go, bro, it is not talked about enough. He is by far the Lakers' best player. Now, LeBron James is the quarterback. He's the one, like you said, Steven, hey, go here, go here, go here. But even LeBron even said, hey, bro, the best defensive player by far in the league, and I'm going to say he's right now, you can say Jokic, you can say D-Book, because they're balling right now. But what Anthony Davis is doing on both ends of the floor has been historic.
Well, I agree with you, and I don't think that Davis, and if that was game number 4 you're referring to when they locked up Steph Curry. He didn't do it once; he did it twice. If you remember correctly, they got the ball back, and he had to again find himself ISO'd Steph Curry in Steph's world, right way out there on the perimeter, and knew he had to get out there, both his feet out above that 3-point line. And like you said, he forced Steph into settling. And I'm not gonna say bad shot because is there really a place on the floor?
I know. I kind of.
I was gonna say, would he shoot it from the third row?
But it was certainly a questionable shot, fading away late in a ball game when you don't have your legs. So I think both of them were short, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I like AD, what he does for that Lakers team. Jokic, who I'm getting my first real up close and personal look as I'm working with the Suns a little bit here and attending all the basketball games. That guy's an alien. The way he moves out there on the floor and shoots it from distance and makes it look effortlessly, 30, 17, and 17 triple doubles, come back the next night, drop 53 points on 60% shooting, 70% shooting, I believe it was. It's amazing what he does onto the Kumpo, Embiid, all these big guys now that along with AD throwing that package, they possess so many more skills than we did 30 years ago when I was playing for the Bulls, where they can put the ball on the floor. I wasn't allowed to dribble the ball more than twice.
Yeah.
If I shot a three-pointer, I got fined by Phil Jackson. So
and you could shoot.
It was a different game.
That's the thing. That's the thing. I tell you guys like you and Bill Wennington, and I can't believe that Bill Laimbeer could shoot. I hate. He should be in prison somewhere. Okay, Bill Laimbeer and Isaiah Thomas should be in prison somewhere. Anyway, that's for another show. But those big men can shoot. But the difference is, you guys weren't allowed to express yourself and have game because you guys were forced. Hey, set the screen and make sure you go rebound. And if you're going to take your shots, you got to post up. Your back has to be to the basket.
Well, your roles, right? So back then we had Craig Hodges, a 3-time NBA 3-point shooting champion, Steve Kerr, John Paxson. We had dudes that were specialists back then in shooting threes, but even then we didn't shoot more than 10 or 12 a game. But these guys will crack up 20, 3-point shots and a half probably tonight on both sides. So there's probably 65 threes may be shot in a regular season game. I've seen teams shoot 30 and a half. So it's the game has changed. The mid-range game that I say still is a good part of playoff basketball. Booker, Kevin Durant, those guys have shown the ability to knock down mid-range jump shots with a high efficiency. So I like the inside-outside play a little bit more than what Denver is doing than what Phoenix is able to get. It's a little bit of a concern going into Game 6 tonight, being down 3-2. But at home, I think the bench players will play a little bit better, which they generally do. So, I'm getting a little caught up here on Phoenix, but it's all these teams' abilities now to put the ball in the basket. I think the one thing that separates the teams that's going to go on to play in the Western Conference Finals or the NBA Finals is going to be the teams that play the defense and rebound in that final fourth quarter.
Now, Jerry, you mentioned you're from Chicago. And you mentioned that I may or may not remember that. I don't know if you remember that I also grew up in Chicago until I was 10 years old. South Side, Hyde Park, 5457 South Woodlawn.
Chi-Town, baby.
However, my father's side of the family is from Milwaukee. And Scott, I know you spent some time with the Bucks, playing out there with the big dog and my golf buddy, Jesus Shuttlesworth. How was your time out there in Milwaukee?
Loved it. I was on some really bad Sixers teams right before they traded me to Milwaukee. And the only reason I got traded was with Tim Thomas. They packaged us together to make the salaries work because I was making so much more than Tim at the time. And the guys they were trading for, you had to have, I think it was a 10 or 15% match of the salary. So I got thrown into the trade. It was about a year after I built my house. I was a little bummed about that, but I was excited to be getting a fresh start in the league because I didn't like playing in Philadelphia with Allen Iverson. It didn't have that team concept and feel that I really enjoyed with Chicago. And when I got to Milwaukee, Ray Allen, Sam Cassell, and Glenn Robinson, those guys wanted to win. They wanted to win a championship. They were thirsty and hungry for that. And so I thought I brought a lot of that Chicago Bulls, camaraderie and togetherness to get these guys to understand that it's just not about what we do on the court, or some of our parts got to be greater than the whole because we're not as talented in the 4 or 5%. Me and Mark Pope and Irvin Johnson, we have to be like a band of brothers, like we talked about. And that's what made us so good. And we were one game away from going back to the NBA Finals, a place that I was hell-bent on getting back to because I won so early in my career and I had so many bad years in Philly. I was ready to get back to that NBA Finals because there's nothing like it. Money and alcohol and drugs. You can't recreate that natural high you get from stepping on that court in the finals and winning the championship. And I wanted to get there. And I wanted it for my teammates that hadn't been there before. I wanted them to get a taste of that.
Well, I told you that I had a story. Jerry, I heard a story, I did, I got family out there, and I heard
spies to me.
I heard that, Scott was a great guy, one of the nicest guys out there, a glue guy for the Bucks. Some of my family very big Bucks fans. I want to know if you remember this, Scott. You were at a place called Elsa's, and
many nights,
and there was some people there, and you were talking to a kid probably about 19, 20 years old, and he told you that he played baseball at Butler University. And you then offered to leave him tickets to the Pacers game when next time you guys came out to Indiana, and he took you up on it, and you said you were very gracious and hospitable to him. Do you remember this happening?
No, I don't. I don't remember this happening. I'm glad I followed through with the tickets, though.
Yeah, well, I'm glad too because that kid was my younger brother, David.
Get out of town, small world.
Yeah, and I spoke to him this morning, and he told me that story about you, and he said that you guys were talking, and he was surprised because you were more interested in talking to him about him than about letting him ask you questions as the NBA guy, and him being a kid. So he was very appreciative of that. I thank you for treating my younger brother nicely and leaving him tickets. And he said that you were just a great guy, and he had nothing but nice things to say. And so he wanted me to tell you hello. David Carr is his name.
That's awesome. Please tell David I said hello. Yeah, and I think I told you guys before we got on air, baseball was my first love. My mama is basically the one who taught me how to catch, field, and throw. So when I had an opportunity to talk with any young person, especially somebody that's involved in sports and especially baseball. So I always thought I could have been an LA Dodger. my strike zone got a little too big. The dude started hitting me that outside part of the plate on me, and I couldn't get down and go get it. So
people don't understand
when they start striking me after being a home run hitter and hitting for extra bases all the time. Next thing I know, I was grabbing some big and walking back to the bench with my tail between the legs. I said, "Okay, I'm going back to hoops, man. I can dominate on the court."
It's tough to cover that plate. That down and away, and you're 6'10". Ooh, lordy, that's tough to cover.
But I tell you what, when I was a young athlete, that was my biggest thrill. Like putting that bat on that ball and watching it fly over that center field fence and hitting the snack shack. That was my everything, and that was my escape. The athletics, when I was young and having troubles at home, was my escape, and I could spend all day out in that ballpark. Even when I wasn't playing, I was watching my friends play, or we were playing pepper on the side. I loved that, the cleats on the gravel, walking in and out of the field there. Everything about the smells, the sounds, I loved it all.
You know, you mentioned that. You mentioned that the smells and the cleats and just the camaraderie being on a baseball field. My grandfather, I don't know if you know this, Scott, my grandfather also played. He played in the Negro Leagues. He was the first black player to play for the Chicago White Sox. And my grandfather, Sam, was on the coaching staff in Birmingham when Michael Jordan was playing baseball. So MJ would make my grandfather tell him stories, because my grandfather played against Satchel Paige. He played against Jackie Robinson. He played against all those greats, Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, and MJ made my grandfather tell him all those stories. And that's what brought, MJ into playing baseball. Baseball was his first love. Just like you shot up to be 6'10", incredible basketball player. Well, MJ thought he was going to be 5'11", 6 feet. He shot up and became an incredible basketball player, but his first love was baseball. Can you kind of walk us through what you guys were thinking, not just with the Bulls, but throughout the league, when all of a sudden Michael Jordan, who was the best athlete of that era, not just basketball player, decides in his prime, you know what, I'm going to leave basketball and I'm going to go pursue baseball?
Yeah, for me in Chicago, I was on top of the world, being an undrafted player, 1 in 3 championships. I remember I was at a White Sox game the night word started circulating that there was going to be a press conference tomorrow, and Michael was going to announce his retirement. And this was, you have to remember too, this was the summer, several months after his father's life was taken from him in the carjacking. And I think, as much as he loved baseball, I also think he needed some time to grieve. And being not just the face of Chicago or the NBA, but really the biggest sports personality on the planet, he wasn't going to be able to find that during the course of the season. And going down to the minor leagues down in Birmingham allowed him not that it was a circus down there, but it wasn't as bright. The lights weren't as bright, and the attention for doing some of the demands in the NBA that he had to do for the league weren't as demanding. And so it gave him a little time to grieve. And I think it gave him some time to really miss basketball as well. As much as I'm sure he had a great time with his teammates down there and with your grandfather and everything. It was great to see him do something that he was extremely passionate about and coming back to the NBA. I just wish that sucker had told me he was coming back, because I could have hung out one more year with Phil Jackson and those guys and been on that second set of three-peats. But I had signed my long-term contract in Philadelphia, so I was already in Philly at the time. But I don't know. Well, I do know in my lifetime, which 25, 35 years left, I guess, if we'll ever see a player that can win 3 championships, take 2 years off, and then come back and win 3 more straight. That ain't happening in the next 25 to 40 years. No way.
No way. You talk about his greatness. I asked Magic Johnson, who part owner of the Dodgers, so we would see him a lot, and I'd corner Magic. I go Magic, tell me right now, greatest basketball player. And obviously LeBron was in his prime, Kobe Bryant, this era. This is just a couple years ago. And Magic said, listen, it's Michael Jordan, and then there's everybody else. For Magic Johnson to say that, who's seen everybody, and Magic Johnson was, he's the best point guard I've ever seen. Number one, no disrespect to Steph Curry. But Magic Johnson, for him to say that is Michael Jordan, and then there's everybody else. That's pretty much saying something.
Stephen, you brought me in, and you talked about starting with Michael Jordan and finishing with LeBron James. You didn't have to add the whole part about being in my born in the '60s when you said that. But yeah, I write in my book about being several months older than LeBron's mom, and that should be a rule in all sports for that matter. If you're older than your teammates' parents, you get your pension immediately. So
Absolutely.
I knew it was time. I knew it was time to retire after that. But I get the question all the time, Scott, who's the greatest? You play with them both. I'm one of four guys in the history of the league to play with them both. And I got LeBron when he's a little younger, but obviously I did Cavs TV after that and I've watched, every year of his 20-year career. And I tell people all the time that I'm not here to say say one is, not as good. Like that, to me, they're 1 and 1A, that they're both that special. But like Magic told you, the thing that makes Michael better than LeBron James and all the other greats, because a lot of people say Magic Johnson's the greatest of all time, or Wilt Chamberlain, or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So there's a debate as to who the greatest is of all time outside of just Michael and LeBron. But I just get Michael and LeBron because I play with both of them. That I'll tell them this, that they both can beat you. They will both live up to the expectations and somewhat surpass the expectations on how they get it done. But for me, it was the fact that Michael Jordan would take the greatest of the games, not just Hall of Famers, the greatest of the Hall of Famers. He would take their confidence from them, that they wouldn't even believe that they could beat him. And that was the most impressive thing to me when we were in a playoff series, especially the NBA Finals. Hell, even if we were in Minnesota in February on a Tuesday night in the fourth game and 5 nights, he would rob guys of their confidence that when they went home and put their head on the pillow, they would not even dream that they could beat him in a game in one-on-one. They'd be embarrassed when their wives or their girlfriends or family members would jump in the car with them leaving the arena. That last person in the upper deck would witness the game would say, I just saw the greatest player ever put on a pair of basketball shoes. And he did that 82 times a night for season after season. There were no load management days or taking the night off because I tweaked an ankle or I sprained a finger. He was determined to walk out of that arena and having proved that he was, without a doubt, the strongest, most complete NBA player, basketball player for that matter, that anybody had ever witnessed.
Well, Scott, you mentioned the book, and we paused that early in the show. I want to get to it now. Through the Fire, a memoir of trauma, loss, triumph in basketball. Can you tell us about that, and can you tell us, what you were about to tell us when you were talking before about how that came about and some of the things that you experienced as a youth?
Well, I'm going to sum it up somewhat succinctly here, but during the pandemic in 2020, when the NCAA tournament got shut down and the league canceled, baseball, as you guys know, they paused their season as well. Everybody was just jonesing for sports. And Michael Jordan's Last Dance came out, the 10-part documentary. And I got to go a chance to do some radio shows and reminisce with some of my old teammates, Stacey King, BJ Armstrong, Will Perdue, and laugh and tell stories and lies. And got a chance to start putting some of the stuff on social media, Facebook and Twitter and whatnot. And some of my buddies, that were close to me would say, hey, why don't you write a autobiography? And I don't know the first thing about writing a book, but just as life happens sometimes, a guy by the name of Ben Guest, who was working on a basketball book, who needed help with some terminology, contacted me. And I said, well, I'll help you with your book if you help me write one. And so that's how the whole thing started. So I was telling you stories about the league and, Scotty and Michael and Phil Jackson and, LeBron James and Kobe Bryant, who I knew, in high school, used to buy him, he and his buddies dinner at Outback Steakhouse, which I had some of that cash back from putting a bill from the cats now. But the book started happening, and he goes, well, what happened before you got into the league? And that's when it got real. It's when it got raw. It's when I got emotional, because I grew up in Southern California in a, upper middle class neighborhood where everything looked nice, 2-story house, 3-car garage, swimming pool and jacuzzi, and a fire pit in the backyard, hoop over the driveway. A dad actually coached some of my little league baseball teams, and mom was on the PTA. Everything looked real good, but there was a lot of domestic violence in the house, both verbal and physical, for me, my brother, and my mother. And one day when I was in college, going to start the first year of my sophomore season's basketball season, I got a knock on the door from Coach Smith. And man, did I think I had screwed up, because it was 7:30 in the morning, and Coach Smith had never been to the dormitories, let alone that early in the morning. And my mom, who had left my dad during my freshman year, told me that he got a gun and he shot her and turned the gun on himself. So I went from, kind of riding a high of freshman year, undefeated in the ACC season, and playing the NCAA tournament, to just have my whole world shut down and kind of implode on me. And I wanted to quit basketball. At least I wanted to sit a year out and return to Southern California to be a little closer to family and friends. And Coach Smith said no. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because he had built a culture at the University of North Carolina that wrapped a warm blanket around me. My days that I was low, somebody would come and grab me and take me for a home-cooked meal. My roommate, Jeff, Danny's parents that lived 2.5 miles down the road, would come grab me during the holidays and make me feel like one of their sons. Everybody around the basketball program, from the secretaries to the athletic director, the SID, always had a smile and a warm greeting for me. So I feel very fortunate that I was in Chapel Hill at a bad time in my life, because there was nights that I was depressed. I couldn't sleep, or I hit the bottle. I was down, and I had barely the strength to get to class, let alone get to a Dean Smith practice. And he didn't take it easy on me. He worked us hard in practice, and that became therapeutic for me. It helped me escape some of the demons I was wrestling with, the dark thoughts that I was wrestling with. And my teammates, grabbing a beer or banging with them on the court, getting a burger, catching a movie, that was all therapeutic for me. And I'm glad I stuck it out, because Coach Smith didn't let me give up on my goals of getting a college degree. He didn't let me give up on my dreams of playing in the NBA. And I owe a lot to that man, for sure.
Well, Scotty, I would like to thank you. We'd like to thank you for doing that, because as you know, life, hits all of us differently, and there are different situations, different tragedies. And for you to experience that, both losing your mother and father in such a way at such a young age, you could have packed it in. You could have given up on life, but you chose to stick it out. And that's why you're a champion on and off the floor. And for you to share that story for this generation, you're going to save a kid's life and multiple kids' lives, because there's a lot of kids out there that are going through certain things, whether it's at home, whether it's at school, being bullied in several different ways. They'll know, you know what? It's bad right now, but if I get through it, just like Scott Williams got through it, I could make something of my life, and I could grow up to be a champion and help better other people in this world. And we're so fortunate that you're able to share that story. I know it's tough, but for you to share that story, you're going to save so many kids.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Jerry. Some people have asked me, why now? Why tell your story now? And the best thing I can say is that, I lived with a lot of shame and guilt. That's the biggest thing when stuff like that is going on at home. You're embarrassed to open up to anybody outside the house, because it's shameful. It really is. You're having your father tell you ain't going to be anything. Beating you down verbally, especially my older brother, who was, Albert Williams Jr., taking out things that shortcomings in his life on my older brother, who was his namesake, watching that day in and day out. And that verbal abuse is just as bad. My story's a little bit, everyone's got a story, and I don't know if I'll save a life, but if I can help influence somebody that is experiencing those dark moments that I had, and I had them, then I hope that it's all worth it. Coach Smith used to write 3 things on the practice plan that it was every player's responsibility to remember. It was an offensive thought for a day, which might be make the extra pass. Defensive thought, sprint back on defense, build out, or challenge shots, whatever. But the most important thing on there was the thought for the day. And it had nothing to do with basketball whatsoever. And one that was a reoccurring theme over my 4 years there was, it's never too late to do the right thing. And I know by doing this, and I've partnered with 2 really good domestic violence centers to help raise awareness and some funds. as every, dollars from every one of these books that is sold will help, drop some money in their coffers. That we can make a difference, because 20 people in every minute is affected by domestic violence in the United States. 1 in 3 women in their lifetime will be directly affected or indirectly affected by domestic violence, 1 in 7 men. So those numbers are just too high. And I think the more we talk about it, we can start breaking that cycle of abuse, because a lot of that stuff that my father did to me and my brother was learned from his father. And I was determined, with education and speaking out and working with different domestic violence centers in Cleveland, here in Phoenix, and of course, real close to both Coach Smith and my mother's heart in Chapel Hill, we can help make a difference.
I work with Prevent Child Abuse America as an ambassador, and we one of the slogans is childhood lasts a lifetime. And I think that, like I said at the beginning of the show, you sharing this is going to help a lot of people really understand a couple of lessons. One, like you said, Coach Smith wouldn't let you go home. And I feel like that was a really, really important move and decision that he helped you make, because when you're in something that has structure like that, it's very, very conducive to you being able to occupy your time and your mind with things that can keep you on a positive path, that can keep your thoughts from drifting into negative territory. And also, it would have been so easy for you as a person to drift into negative territory had you returned to where you were from and been around some of the sights and sounds that you grew up around and things like that you may have never returned back to basketball. So I think it was such a good thing and a good coaching, and that's why Coach Smith, was one of the best that we've ever seen. He just had a knowledge of how to deal with people, and especially young people. And I think that was, the story you just told is amazing in that regard. But it's also a testimony to your incredible decision to stay there and stay focused, and everything happens for a reason. They say God doesn't give you anything that you can't handle. So I think that, a lot of the intestinal fortitude that it took you to become the champion that you became, probably and I'll go as far as to say most definitely stemmed from that decision. And from that point on, God had his hand on your shoulder and he showed you the way.
Stephen, I agree with you 100%. That was the brilliance or the beauty, however you want to put it, of Coach Dean Smith. I'm glad that you brought him back into the conversation, because he cared more about all of his players. He didn't care about the winning of the game. He gave the credit. He was competitive now, don't get me wrong. He worked our tails off. But he didn't just roll the balls out to a bunch of All-Americans and want wins. He wanted to teach us how to become young men, productive in society, whether you went on to play in the NBA or not. He cared about you. I don't know if you can see over my shoulder here, this one here, there's a check that he wrote to all of the players that played for him from his estate after he had passed. Just enough money to go get a dinner, a steak, maybe a glass or a bottle of wine, to thank us for what what we did for him. I never cashed that check. I wanted to have that memorabilia on my wall to kind of frame the letter and the check and a couple of his basketball cards I found. But it was what he did for us that was so much greater for all of us. And when, like I said earlier, when I had my book signed, I have 3-4 guys pop up out of the woodwork and show up for me and help me with that and support me with that, as they knew I was nervous as all get out. I'd rather play Game 7 of the NBA Finals than face that first book signing ever again. But I'm like I said, I hope the book will do some good. I hope it will land in a young woman's hands. That will help them when they're having their struggles the way I did. There's too many kids you hear about on these college campuses nowadays that don't find their way through the other side of some of the dark times that they're having. So I'm hoping, like you, Jerry, that I can start spreading the word and get with some college programs and share my story, because I get real, I get raw, and get emotional. I talk about having to sneak out of the house and staying at a neighbor's house for fear of a beating, waiting for my mom to come home, went into bed till I was 18 years old, man.
Wow.
And not understanding why. I was afraid to go to sleep, most, if not every night. Those were things I never shared with anybody. I wrote this book and thought many times that I might just put it in a safety deposit box and give the key to my kids after I'm ready for that dirt, because I didn't want, it's shameful, it's embarrassing, but I told the story and I wanted it out there. One, Rita Williams didn't raise no sissies, she didn't raise no punks. And if I can't handle the Twitter trolls, then I let them win by not trying to help a kid. And I think it's more important to help some kid or some young woman and honor her appropriately. Her birthday would have been yesterday, 76 years old. So with that and her Mother's Day coming up, I wanted to make sure I got this story out there to honor her for the sacrifice that she made for me and my brother, staying in that abusive relationship. Because I used to ask her, so Mom, why don't you leave? And she said, I'm going to leave when I get my babies out of the house. And sure enough, as soon as she got me off to college that year, she left.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, I bet you that none of the money that Coach Smith wanted to come out of that account ever left that account. I'd be pretty confident to say every single one of you guys kept those checks, and his estate is still
Pete Chilcutt might have cashed his. Pete had those alligator arms, Stephen. I don't know, but I'm sure he still got the check regardless. I joke. I had to slam one for Pete because he got me out when we were in Chapel Hill for the book signing. So, but yeah, no, everybody loved Coach Smith when he passed. The number of players from the '60s all the way into the 2000s that showed up for his memorial service was so impressive. The legacy that he left behind.
Wow.
Well, Scott, we so appreciate you coming on. Will you show us that book once again, Through the Fire? And as like you stated, you will make a difference in young kids' lives. For you to share that story is tremendous. And again, for you to have been a champion on the court, and you made a difference in my life. Like I said, when you got there, you guys started winning championships, and I was a happy 14, 15, and 16-year-old kid, and I wanted to be like that Bulls team. I wanted to be a champion one day, and fortunately, I was able to achieve that 1 year in baseball. But for you to do this, I think and I know you're going to have a greater impact on kids, not just today, but in the future. And I'm so happy that you're doing that. And we're so thankful that you are a part of our show here. And we want to wrap up and thank you for Scott Williams and Stephen Bishop. This is Jerry Hairston Jr. for Hollywood Swinging.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for coming, Scott.
Yeah. We just wanted to wrap right there. But then,
okay, perfect. Thank you guys for having me on, man. I hope I wasn't too long-winded with some
of
my answers, and I know I got to rushing a little bit sometimes. You still get excited, but that was awesome. I appreciate you guys really letting me share and all the nice things that you said about me and Coach Smith and my family as well. So, your Stephen, to your son, your brother, was it David?
Yeah,
that's an amazing coincidence that happened. Please tell him I said hello. How did his baseball career turn out?
He ended up he didn't. He thought he was going to sign with Cincinnati, but it didn't work out for him. He didn't get a chance to go play pro ball, but he did pretty well at Butler. So, I thought he was going to get
Butler. Okay, that's right.
Yeah. He did pretty well. I thought, he was going to get a shot. I thought I knew a guy who was a scouting guy over at Cincinnati at the time, and our father knew Sal Bando. So I thought he was going to get, a look with them, but he ended up working in the front office with the Brewers for a while. So, now he's an attorney out there and still living out there in Milwaukee. So he's got 6 kids now, and he's living a good life. So it turned out all good for him.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, Elsa's was the spot, man, in Milwaukee, right there on Cathedral Square. They had, it was one of the few spots in Milwaukee that stayed open late, right? 2 a.m. and you could still get a decent meal or a sandwich or some chicken wings or a good cocktail. And they had this dessert. I'm sure it's still there. called the Golden Gate Cake. You guys ever make it back through there when you go through with the Dodgers or whatnot, Jerry? Get that Golden Gate Cake, man. It'll change your life.
All
And
right.
tell Magic. I keep sending him messages, man. I want some tickets to the game because he got them choice seats with the lots of leg room right behind home plate. And I'm like, dude, if I go to a baseball game, that's my biggest pet peeve, that I can't sit in the stands and shell peanuts because there's not enough leg room. I see those big gold chairs behind home plate. I keep hitting up. I go, Buck, man, come on, give me some tickets to a game, Buck. He no reply.
Have Anna. Anna has my number. Have Anna let me know when you want to go to a game.
Oh, well, don't say it if you don't mean it, because I'm that cat will take you up on it.
No. I mean, well, and also if you want to go here when the Dodgers are here at here playing the D-backs too.
Yeah, no, I got the hook up here. I got the hook up for the D-backs game, but I want to go to Chavez Ravine. I went to Game 7 of the World Series. Who the hell we all? Houston, maybe.
Houston, yep.
Yeah, the Houston game. I took my old my point guard from that Wilson teams. We went down to Game 7 and checked that out. But I want to. We were way down the third base line. Yeah, but pick a random Wednesday night when there won't be high demand on tickets. I'd love to come down and
man. You let me know, man. You make it out. I'll tell.
One of the things I was supposed to do this week, and I get a chance to. Because someone dear to me has got terminally ill with pancreatic cancer. I wanted to try to sneak away, but to sit with my mom, who's buried in SoCal. So I might do that next week. I don't know what the schedule's like for baseball, but if it so happens, I might actually be calling you sooner rather than later.
Let me know, because I think they are home.
If you don't mind, I'll take your number right now. That's why I don't have to worry about Anna not giving it to me.
Take it now. Let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
480.
435
7914.
7914. All right,
now,
I got you.
If you're looking to come,
I'll shoot you a text with mine too.
Okay. Are you looking to come Wednesday, you said?
Here's the deal. Part of me is locked into this Phoenix Suns run. Can they win 2 games in a row? I'm hopeful that they can.
I understand.
But
you let me know. Just let me know
until either tonight or Sunday night what's going on.
Completely understand.
Yeah,
I get it. Just let me know.
Like everybody wants, well, can you do this? Can you do that? I go, maybe.
I hear you.
I'm at the mercy of what these cats are doing right now.
I hear you.
Hey, Scott, you got 5 more minutes?
Yeah, like I said, I got a place to be at.
We got a segment on the show. Hey, Adam, keep this rolling. I'm gonna go into this. Scott, I hear that you're, from your baseball conversation, that you are a baseball guy. You were the 6'10" guy that gave it up because you didn't want to see that slider low and away. We have a segment on our show called "You're Not That Good." It's where we find people out in the world who believe that they are really good at what they do, and we tell them that they're not that good.
I love it. I love it.
And today, our subject is a young hitter from the Tampa Bay Rays named Randy Arozarena. I don't know if you've seen over the last couple of days here that there's been some controversy about him. Well, Randy has a signature home run move, and I don't know what's going on with these guys and these signature home run moves when they come around third base. Tatis has the stutter step, and these other guys have these other things. That he's got one where he touches third base, and then he stands and crosses his arms, and he just stands still and looks at his coach and then proceeds to go touch home plate. Well, he did that against the New York Yankees. And the New York Yankees are typically not an organization that go against tradition. They're typically an organization that take it very, very seriously, and you don't play around with the Yankees because they're typically a pretty good team.
Old school.
Well, Randy, yeah, they're old school. Randy found that out the hard way. His next 2 times up, he got beaned. He got hit.
I could see that coming. Yeah.
And, I'm here today to tell Randy, you're not that good. For you to come around third base and hold your arms like this and show up the guy that you just hit a home run against. Now, I get it. You're looking at your coach and you're celebrating with your team. That's fine. And you have every right to do that. But The other team has every right to exercise the unwritten rules of baseball. And before I go any further with that, I want to say this to the people who are in all the comment sections, in all the posts. If you are one of the people who are of the ilk that says, well, if you don't want to get hit, if you don't want them to show you up, then pitch better and don't give up a home run. The home run isn't the issue. He hit the home run. He's got the right to jog around the bases. What he doesn't have a right to do is stand there and try to embarrass my pitcher, embarrass my team on the field. That's where the unwritten rules come in. So no, listen, you have the right to do what you want to do on the field. You are right, but we also have the right to throw at you, and we also have the right to fight as teammates. You know what I mean? My teams growing up, the era that, I grew up in playing baseball, where before we had plastic helmets, Jerry, we threw at you and then we were ready to fight. So, you go ahead. You make your celebration. Just be prepared to get hit. So, Randy, you're a 275 career hitter in 5 seasons. You haven't earned the right to do that quite yet. I'm not a big leaguer. Jerry, my co-host, is a big leaguer, but I will say as a lifelong baseball player and baseball fan that you gotta, as Jay-Z would say, you need more stamps in your passport to be doing that kind of thing. I'm just going to tell you for the sake of this show, you're not that good. You're pretty good, 275 big league hitter over 5 seasons, but I don't know if you're quite that good to be doing that on the field. Jerry, how do you feel about this?
Well, even if he was a career 375 hitter, he was not celebrating with his teammates. That's what I have a problem with. I'm all for these young guys having fun. I want players to have fun, express themselves. If you want to celebrate, scream, pump your fist and point to your dugout, I'm all for that. The thing, what he did was, it wasn't directed toward his dugout, and it's called rounding the bases. When you hit a home run, you round the bases. He stopped. He wasn't rounding the bases anymore. He stopped and made it about him, not his team, not celebrating his team. And he may not have been looking towards the Yankees. He said he was looking towards his third base coach, but it was in the direction of the third base dugout, where the Yankees are at. So they felt that it was towards their direction. So he did what he had to do, and the Yankees felt that they had to do what they had to do, is defend themselves and, make sure that they didn't agree with him stopping. Again, I'm all for him hitting his home run and celebrating and having a good time. But when you stop your home run trot, come on, bruh. You ain't that good, even if you hit 375 for the season.
No, I will give him credit. He took it like a man. He didn't charge the mound. They got into something about the pitchers being warned and all of that. I give you credit, Randy. You didn't charge the mound. You took it like a man. You knew what was coming, and you took it. So
what's a shame is I love him as a player. Great player. I hear he's a great dude. He's great for the game, but that issue, man, come on, man. You can't do that. You can't do that.
I want to jump in here too, Randy. You're not that good. Don't
Love
make
it
about your Q rating, the social media clicks, trying to get on Sports Centers, the top 10. Play for your teammates and the love of the game. All that other stuff will come when it's supposed to. You're not that good.
All right.
Love
it.
Love it.
Well, hey, man, I really, really appreciate you being here. Jerry, you want to take us out again so that we can have that clean on the tail end of the
Absolutely. Scotty, we appreciate you coming on. Incredible champion on and off the court. For Scott Williams, Stephen Bishop, I'm Jerry Hairston Jr. for Hollywood Swinging.